instances of paranormal phenomena have been reported in this desolate place. Events that may reflect the area's tragic past.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Other Dangerous Podcast, where we talk all things paranormal. I'm Ken James, and this is Jason McKittrick.
Hey, folks.
And if it can haunt, howl, or dwell in the dark, we want to talk about it. And tonight, we are talking about Sloss Furnace in Birmingham, Alabama. So this is a place with a very dark history, which I'm going to get into. But before I do, we're going over to Jay for tonight's jump scare.
Oh, thanks, Ken. All right, so tonight's jump scare, a lengthy one, but this is a good one. Comes from Chris, who've been trying to get on here for a little bit. He's a friend from Facebook. And yeah, you'll see why. Chris says, it was the beginning of spring 2004. My father had become the manager of a New Jersey funeral home, and the owners had opted to renovate portions of the building. I didn't have a lot going on at the time. We all know. We all know that the renovations is what goes on. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot going on at the time, and he offered me a job doing some of the work. I would have to work nights so I wouldn't disturb any families or services in the building. But I didn't mind because I normally stayed up late anyway. The incidents that occurred there started from the first day I came to work. The funeral home was built into the side of a hill. The basement consisted of a 2-car garage, embalming room, casket room, flower room, a large boiler room, and a hallway which connected all of these rooms along with a staircase which led to the first floor. Visitors would drive up and around to the back of the building and enter on the first floor. My first job was working in the casket room. I spent the first half of the evening tearing out carpets, then moved on to painting the room. It was around 11 o'clock that everything changed for me. That night. I was finishing painting the bottom of the door frame when I felt as if someone had just entered the room. I paused, poked my head into the hall and up the stairs, shrugged it off, and went back to painting. A moment later, a voice called out practically in my ear and asked the question, "What are you doing here?" I can relate to this one. For the first time ever, a chill ran down my spine and I felt myself freeze in place. I couldn't turn around. I knew there was no other way into the basement room and wasn't ready to find out who just spoke out loud. I put the paintbrush down and left. I couldn't even go up the stairs. I exited through the garage and couldn't get outside fast enough. On the drive home, I debated heavily if I wanted to go back. I mean, I hear you.
Yeah.
It's a funeral home to begin with. I mean,
yeah.
Whew.
And already, like, it has like a boiler room. It's in a fucking hill. Like, it's the perfect store, buddy.
Yeah. After a few days, my father called and asked when I was planning on finishing the job. I couldn't tell him what happened. I just said, soon. I reluctantly headed back to the funeral home and began painting the first floor foyer. Armed with the loudest stereo I could find, I set about turning on all of the lights on the floor and kept the music blasting until I was finished. Nothing occurred this time, but I already knew I didn't like being there. I finished the job and was glad to be away from the place. Fast forward to summer. My lease was up on my winter rental, and I was hit with a proposal I would have been crazy to pass up. The funeral home had a top floor apartment that was the length of the building and also unoccupied. My father asked if I wanted to live there free of charge and to just keep an eye on the property in my spare time. I needed time to think about this. Knowing I wasn't going to get a better opportunity than free lodging, I reluctantly agreed. To get to the apartment, you had to enter the first floor and climb the staircase by the main chapel area. There was no outside entrance. As you entered the apartment, to the left was a small TV area that already had 2 lazy boy recliners occupying it, along with a deep, narrow closet. Ugh. Ahead was the kitchen area, and to the right was a hallway which led to a door, which led to the largest room. Built off of that room were 2 small bedrooms. And so yeah, it's like a very like oblong, kind of setup. Mm-hmm. The first few nights, I didn't want to sleep there. I'd either bring home company or stay out until sunrise to avoid being there alone. After a few days, I finally settled into sleeping in the room with the recliners, which was right next to the apartment door. Again, things started occurring. On an almost nightly basis, I'd wake up between 3 and 4, the demonic hours.
Yeah.
Everything's demons, right?
Yeah.
To find the apartment door wide open. Jesus.
Fuck you.
With this too, man. Keep in mind, the only people working there were my dad and a secretary, and they were both gone by 5 in the afternoon. After the second time it happened, I became adamant about making sure there was no way it could budge without me unlocking it. But sure enough, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and the door would be open. God damn it, the same thing happened here. We'll get to this.
Mm-hmm.
Not long after I was talking with the secretary and playing with her toy poodle that she brought to work daily. We were sitting at the bottom of the apartment staircase when out of nowhere she says to me, "You know this place is haunted."
Oh, bitch. What a bitch. Bitch.
At this point, I hadn't mentioned to a single person what was happening to me personally. "What makes you think that?" I asked. She proceeds to tell me about everyone who worked there in the past has a story about the place. She did as well. One day she was in the apartment making lunch when her dog started to howl from the bottom of the staircase. It's probably here I should mention that the decor of the funeral home was largely bicentennial in nature. A lot of replica antiques and colonial art. Interesting. So like 70s, yeah.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the stairs on the opposing wall was an old crank phone, which I had joked to myself that it looked like it had a face due to its 2 bell chimes and a long cylinder that you speak into. So her dog is going ballistic at the bottom of the stairs. When the secretary reaches the bottom of the stairs, she finds her dog staring and howling at the phone. The base of it ripped open and the wires hanging out. There was no one else in the building, and I could tell you personally, you would need a Phillips head screwdriver to open it. On a separate incident, my father was passing through the corridor, went to step around the dog, and said he felt like he had gotten thrown into the phone. When he showed me his shoulder, it was so deeply bruised that it was yellow. I still hadn't mentioned anything that had happened to me. Eventually, I moved to the large room in the back and made it into a bedroom. I would often find that door open in the middle of the night, but I had adjusted to it at this point. A few of my friends knew about what was going on and wanted to do their own ghost hunts in the place, but I feel like it was not my place to allow that. One night I had a friend stay over, and in the middle of the night, she shook me awake. I hadn't heard anything, but she was pointing and going, "The door's opening. The door's opening." Fuck that. I don't want to see that in action. I hopped out of bed and I stared as the door pushed itself off of the striker plate, slowly working its way open with each push. Oof. There was a gap under the door and I could see down the hallway, but there definitely wasn't anyone on the other side of it. As it started to fling open, I swung my leg hard and kicked it shut. Nothing happened again after that.
Nice.
Yeah, some ghost busting. A few months later, I was out to dinner with my dad when he runs into an old friend. I'm talking someone he hasn't seen in years. In the course of the conversation, he tells her she's managing this funeral home, and he goes, "The place is haunted." I still hadn't told my experiences there, but he insisted it was haunted. I said, "Bullshit." His friend is laughing, and he waves us both down and proceeds to tell how he was walking through the basement hallway when he felt a cold chill followed by the voice that asked, "What are you doing here?" His friend asked what he did, and he replied, "I told them what I was doing there." He concluded it was the former owner keeping an eye on the place. It was a relief to finally be able to talk about what has happened to me without sounding crazy, and it made me less of a skeptic when people talk about encounters with the paranormal. As for that place, a lot of activity seemed to stop once the renovation work was done. And that's from Chris. Yeah, Chris. There's a lot of. I mean, I don't want to call it garden variety because I'm not trying to, downplay your experience at all. But there's a lot of garden variety stuff in there that I've heard from plenty of people who have had things very similar to that, myself included. The opening doors. I guess we're going to talk about my house again.
What are you doing here? No.
Well, hey, man. When we first moved in, the doors up here, the 2 attic doors would just open, and I'd put stuff in front of it, and they would be open. I'd make up in the middle of the night and be open. And then just recently, when we were wrapping the Christmas presents, hello.
Yeah. So, those the old phones. the house I used to live at, my grandparents had one of those, and my grandma used to talk on it a lot. And on our Walnut Hill episode that we did here when I had my wife on, one time she heard like someone talking on the phone where that phone would be, and she had no clue that's where that phone used to be. And she said this is where it was coming from, and she was so terrified. She knew no one was home, but she heard an older woman talking. I was like, that was my grandmom on the phone. You know, like, oh.
Yeah, and you know what? She probably like the old folks did probably sat in that same spot to have all their conversations. So, talk about that, wearing through the fabric of of time and space or whatever.
Right. Well, the thing is too, it was one of those old timey where you had the thing, the ear, and you would talk on into the wall, and it was like, ugh.
Yeah. That's interesting too. I wonder, because it seems like almost like the ghost didn't like that phone. Yeah, Chris, I wonder if there's, anything to that, like, was it a functional phone, or is it like, or did it ring? I mean, was like, maybe if it was the previous owner, was he like, hey, this phone is making too much noise for a funeral home kind of thing? Like, seriously, I mean, who knows what it is? But, yeah, man, I mean, sleeping above a funeral home, man, you're braver than I am.
Yeah. He basically lived out the autopsy of Jane Doe,
Yeah. I mean,
or My Girl.
Ooh. Which one's
Danny
scarier?
Aykroyd. Well, he didn't see his best friend killed by bees, So. His glasses. He can't see without his glasses.
It's true. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. All right. Well, so on to Sloss Furnace. So
yes, thank you, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. So Sloss Furnace, I'm gonna get into it here. It's got a dark kind of history, but also in the same breath, it's pretty important to the developing of our nation here. But Sloss Furnace is a national historic landmark in Birmingham, Alabama. Originally operated as a pig iron producing blast furnace from 1882 to 1971. After closing, it became one of the first industrial sites and the only blast furnace in the U.S. to be preserved and restored in public use. In 1981, the furnace was designated a National Historic Landmark by the United States Department of Interior. Now it serves as a museum of industry and as a nationally recognized metal art program. It also serves as a concert hall and a venue for festivals. Okay, so now in 1881, Colonel James Withers Sloss formed his own company, the Sloss Furnace Company, and began construction of Birmingham's first blast furnace on 50 acres of land donated by the Elton Land Company for industrial development. The engineer in charge of construction was Harry Hargraves, a former student of English inventor Thomas Whitwell. The two Whitwell-type furnaces were 60 feet tall and 18 feet in diameter. The first blast was initiated in April 1882, and the facility produced 24,000 tons of high-quality iron during its first year of operation. In 1886, Sloss retired and sold the company to a group of investors who reorganized it in 1899 as the Sloss Sheffield Steel and Iron Company. The group would collude with local sheriffs and use a system called peonage, where they would arrest mainly African-American men, usually under bogus charges like vagrancy. The Sloss Company would then purchase these men and work them as slaves, allowing slavery to continue after Civil War, and amassed a great wealth for Sloss.
Awful.
So in 1909, James Pickering Dovell had become the superintendent of construction. For the next 21 years, Sloss was Dovell's workshop for invention. In all, some 17 patents were created to Dovell. Though this aggressive campaign of modernization and expansion, including a furnace, mining, and quarrying operations all around Jefferson County, Sloss Sheffield became the second largest seller of pig iron in the district and among the largest in the world. During this period, the company built 48 small cottages for black workers near the downtown furnace, a community that became known as Sloss Quarters, or just the Quarters, right? And the conditions in there, sometimes there were these like little shotgun shacks, they would call them, and they would, up to 30 people would live in these small shacks in horrible conditions. So, and then in 1952, the Sloss Furnace furnaces were acquired by the U.S. Pipe and Foundry Company and sold nearly 2 decades later in 1969 to the Jim Walter Corp. The Birmingham area had been suffering from serious air pollution problems during the 1950s and 1960s due to the iron and steel industry there, and the yielding brown ores from other regions were feeding the blast furnaces. The Jim Walter Company closed the furnace 2 years later and then donated the property to the Alabama State Fair Authority for possible development and a museum of industry. Now, in June 2012, a former groundbreaking ceremony was held in the site to commemorate the beginning of the construction of a new 16,000 square foot visitors and education center to be located on the southwest corner of the property. The new complex, funded jointly by the city of Birmingham and the Sloss Foundation, hosts an educational exhibits relevant to the site's history, administrative offices, as well as additional multiple-purpose space for public events. Sloss Furnace holds metal arts classes and events, food festivals, fun runs, education programs, weddings, concerts, as well as historic night tours. The facility improvements in line with expected ongoing projects within the city to construct new greenway spaces for downtown area, possibly linking several popular city venues in the future. The story of Sloss's preservation and modern use was documented in Alabama Public Television Sloss, an industry to art. And then finally, in 2022, the Sloss Furnace will be the competition venue for the 2022 World Games. Sport climbing, breaking, parkour, and beach handball will all hold their respective competitions there.
Parkour, huh?
Yeah, parkour, man.
So, I mean, this is another one of those ones, right, where it's appeared on every ghost hunting show, right? It's run the gamut. I mean, I think, as usually is the case, my favorite iteration is the Ghost Adventures one, and that one heavily focused on their most famous ghost, gentleman by the name of Slag, right?
Yeah,
did you come across this guy?
Lovely known. Yeah, he was respectively known as Slag by his workers.
Yeah, in the early 1900s, James Slag Wormwood was foreman of the graveyard shift, which is the if they don't know, it's the period between sunset and sunrise, where a skeleton crew of nearly 150 workers toiled to keep the furnace fed. During the stifling summer months, temperatures throughout the plant would reach to more than 120 degrees. So lack of sleep, the heat, and low visibility made working the furnace literally a living hell. And only the poorest of workers desperate for employment would work it. These workers, mostly recently arrived immigrants, were forced to live in cramped housing located on the furnace site, like you mentioned, and could be forced at any moment to return to work. That was another thing I came across. Did you see that? That like you had your shift, but then like if you were like on site, one of these guys, they would just come by and like, yeah, you got to get back to work now.
Yeah.
Oh no, fired.
Yep.
To impress the supervisors, Wormwood would make his workers take dangerous risks, forcing them to speed up production. During his reign, 47 workers lost their lives, 10 times more than any other shift in the history of the furnace. Countless others lost their ability to work due to accidents, mishaps, and even a recorded explosion in the small blowing engine house in 1888 that left 6 workers burned blind. There were no breaks, there were no holidays, there was only the furnace and its constant hunger for more and more coal.
Well, yeah, so 47 under his watch. In total, 67 overall died there. So 20 more, but without Slag around.
Yeah. So in October of 1906, Slag lost his footing at the top of the highest blast furnace, known as Big Alice, which is like the famous, tall tower, and plummeted into a pool of melted iron ore. His body melted instantly. Yep. Instantly, like the T-1000. It was reported that Slag must have become dizzy from the methane gas created by the furnace and lost his balance. But Slag had never set foot on top of furnace during his years of employment. So it was kind of weird. Many thought that the workers had finally had enough of Wormwood's slave driving and fed him into the furnace, but no workers were ever brought to trial. Sloss Industries soon discontinued the graveyard shift, citing numerous reports of accidents and quote-unquote strange incidents that decreased steel production. So the legend of Slag grew each year after his disappearance. Workers complained of an unnatural presence they increasingly encountered throughout the worksite. A night watchman in 1926 sustained injuries after being pushed from behind and told angrily by a deep voice to get back to work. The man, upon searching the grounds, could find no sign of any other living person. In 1947, these supervisors turned up missing. 3 supervisors turned up missing, excuse me. Found unconscious and locked in the small boiler room in the southeastern part of the plant. None of the 3 could explain exactly what had happened to them. All agreed that they were approached by a man whose skin appeared badly burned and who angrily shouted at them to push some steel.
I love that.
Oh, yeah, man. And then we also have the... did you come across the half man, half demon?
Yes, I did. That was from one of the, what was it, a former employee?
Yes. Probably the most horrifying tale occurred in 1971 when the night before the plant closed, last night, Samuel Blumenthal, the Sloss night watchman, who was nostalgically taking a last look about, found himself face to face with the most frightening thing he had ever seen, quote unquote. He described it as simply as evil, a half man, half demon who tried to push him up the stairs. When Blumenthal refused, the monster began to beat on him with his fists. Upon examination by Dr. Jack Barlow, Blumenthal was found covered with intense burns. He died before ever returning to Sloss. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, and that's there had been more than 100 reports of suspected paranormal activity at Sloss Furnace recorded in Birmingham police records while it was open, from minor incidences such as steam whistles apparently blowing by themselves to major sightings and the rare physical assault. It is interesting to note that the majority of these reports happened in the months of September and October during the old graveyard shift. So some merely dismiss the occurrences as Halloween hoaxes. Halloween hoaxes are the best. Others believe it is the restless spirit of the sadistic foreman Slag. So
that's what I'm going with.
Yeah. So it's all fun and games.
Right. Now, I in preparation to this, I was watching a couple of the litany of ghost shows that I did this, and I went to one of our old favorites, and I watched the segment from Scariest Places on Earth. Now, immediately,
what do they call it in that? They call it something else in that, don't they?
No, I think it's
no,
Sloss.
I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah.
You're thinking of MTV's Fear?
I'm thinking of Fear. Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and immediately,
I'm not the one who's so far away.
Yeah. Godsmack, gotta love it. But
do I?
No, that was sarcasm. But yeah, they were they were interviewing a lot of employees, current and former, and some of their stories of describing it. They're like, there's a one old guy who's like, in the winter months, the only thing that was different between the winter and summer is that in the summer you were burned all over, and in the winter you're half burned and half frozen. And you're like, all right, dude, chill out.
It's all right, man.
Relax. This is Fox Family, man. But yeah, and then they stuck one of the women who had apparently an encounter with Slag into, well, first the ghost team that was setting up for it, right? This guy's got all these tools that I've never seen before and never saw again, right? So it's like this special, he's like, this is like the horn ear. It's a special ear that hears, as soon as it's triggered by whatever fancy fucking word he had for this device. And then he had an RC car fitted with cameras and all kinds of tech devices that goes to the places that that we really don't want to go. And then they just basically stick one of the chick who had an encounter with Slag. They just stick her in a room, so they stick her next to one of the furnaces, and they're like, we know this is traumatic, but just stay here in the dark for a while and tell us what you see. And she ends up she's like talking. She's like, I don't really know what's real and what's not. She's like, I'm hearing all these noises above me and around me. She goes, but it's just them, right? It's just the people. And she starts, making the noises on the chair she's sitting on and all that. And they come in, they're like, well, no, we were 2 buildings over. So everything you heard, there's no one else here. So, once again, it's not caught on camera or anything, but it's just her describing it. So it's one of those, you're your own best tool. And, obviously his RC car tricked out with all the gizmos didn't catch shit, but a human being sitting alone in there did.
Yeah, that's another experiment that they did on Ghost Adventures too, right? They had was it Zach or Nick? One of them was sitting in the dark.
Probably Nick.
Probably. And same kind of thing. They were hearing like all sorts of like weird noises and whatever. And it's, you know, it's kind of crazy because it's all, you know, the whole place it's, you know, this big, you know, factory, you know, used to, you know, process ore and make steel. And it's like, you know, what is that? You know, is that like a good conductor for paranormal activity? I mean, apparently, according to these stories, but like, I wonder, you know, just, you know, how we wonder about these things, you know, water, you know, there's the stone tape theory. And then, you know, what is it about this place? Was it the roaring fires that were, you know, in this place for, you know, decades?
Well,
you know?
first off, it's got all the human suffering, right? So you have, besides the 67 deaths on site, you have, you know, basically slavery, people's misery, you know, crammed in these shacks. And then another thing they did, they didn't pay them in regular currency. What they would do is they would give them, it was called, crackle. What was it called? But basically it looked like money, but it wasn't. And you could only use it to, one, pay your rent, or two, buy stuff from the store that they had on site.
Yeah, that was an old thing companies used to do.
Right. So like man, that alone is such a because you could never save up to leave, right?
No.
So all the people that work there, you know, even if you were not, you know, basically an indentured servant, which you were anyway, you were there. You weren't going anywhere, right? So in life, you weren't going anywhere, and you latch on to that, and that is your life. So that itself, right there, without the steel or the roaring fires or, you know, the death, that right there, boom, that's like a hotbed for just, you know, the heaviness and the thickness and the ectoplasm to start building.
Did you see or do you remember in the to bring it up again, the Ghost Adventures episode, the girl who had like a tramp stamp of like the Sloss Furnace?
I honestly don't remember that, but now I got to go back and watch.
We have to cut that in.
Right.
Oh yeah. So we're here with Sarah, and Sarah, you've worked here at Sloss Furnace for how long?
For about 6 years.
Do you want to see how dedicated this girl is to Sloss Furnace? Can I show?
Yeah.
Yes, that is the tattoo of the Sloss Furnaces. Very cool.
And the thing too is, you know, and we were saying, was it Zach or Nick or who was it that was in there? Did Zach try to fight anyone?
Well, yeah, Zach had like I forget what he was doing. He was it was a stick or like a rope or something, or like a belt, and he was like hitting it against stuff. He's like Slag, I'm the new boss here. He's like, you're fired. He's like, get the hell out of here. It's one of the best, and by best I mean worst, and it's just pure entertainment. And if we could get the audio for that, maybe we'll cut that in here.
Is there anybody here? Come on out and show yourself. I'm just sitting here like a piece of bait for you. Come on out through that hallway right there. Come on, is that you, Slag? Slag, are you the piece of crap who was slapping the boy in the face? Well, come do it to me. Come on, I can't even see you. Getting some cold chills right now. You still here, Slag? Do you still think you're working? Would you make a noise for me?
Dude, you okay, man? You just get slapped?
No, I'm hearing some noises. Don't call me right now. Come on, Slag, is that you? Are you getting pissed off? All you can do is make some noises? Come on, I want more than that. So make it up. Holy. Okay, Slag, you're doing a good job there, man. You're doing a real good job. You're doing a real good job. Aaron, are you seeing anything? Because I'm hearing noises, man. That's 3 noises I've heard.
Are you seeing anything around me at all?
No, It looks pretty clear, but
Keep an eye on it.
Come on, Slag. That's pretty good, buddy. All right, Slag, I want you to do me a favor. You see this little red light? There's another little noise there. I'm getting chills too, really bad cold chills. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh man. My whole body is complete froze over right now. My whole entire body is completely chilled right now. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm telling you right now, Slag, you're fired. Grab your gear and get the hell out of here now. I'm taking your new job. I'm taking your new job. What the? Right after I heard that unexplained noise, taking your new job. What the? I captured this EVP on my digital recorder that sounds like a spirit telling me to come here. Did I make contact with Slag? Is that you, Slag?
And he, oh man,
a true professional.
Like the guy is always on, right? He's always performing.
Always on.
Yeah,
always on.
And like, yeah, like I don't know what sets him off to put him to the point where he wants to fight everyone else in the group. You know, where
I think he just hates everybody. It's just his, he was probably bullied when he was a kid.
Oh, definitely. Come on.
So investigation started here pretty early. In 1988, a study was conducted by the Center for Paranormal Events, or CPE, in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the Sloss Furnaces. While no events out of the ordinary occurred during the study, which occurred in May, many of the team members, including two psychics, claim that due to the violent disregard for and loss of life, Sloss Furnace should be considered a location rife with restless souls. In 2000, Sloss was studied once again by the paranormal team of Fox's Scariest Places, who concluded that it was one of the highest rated areas of unnatural energy they had encountered.
Well, yeah. So when I was watching that, I want to break in here. Yeah. So they don't show any of the evidence they got, but then they cut to at the end. The guy's like, so we have concluded with our data that we've gathered that this place is haunted by multiple entities and has a lot. And you're like, well, where's you just showed us the stuff with the chick. You didn't, I didn't see any evidence. And then the one other thing I wanted to include in that area or go into, it's so two psychics, they gathered.
Yeah.
They were like, this must be haunted because of the violent disregard for and loss of life. Like, no shit, man. You don't have to be a psychic to conclude that, and yeah, the area should be considered, a location rife with restless souls. Yeah. I don't need to be a psychic to tell you that. Guess what?
Right.
I could read the history of it and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
This place is probably pretty fucking haunted,
And then for no reason get like a stomach ache and then start crying. You'd be like, I have to leave. It's just too scary.
I see him hanging.
That's some old school sightings right there.
Yeah, I gotcha.
We should do an episode on the ghost report one time.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's coming up.
Yeah. It's where our fantastic theme song comes from.
Yep.
The words, not the music. That's all Ken James there.
Ow.
In early 2002, a skeptical investigative team from CBS affiliate WJTV investigated the site. They left frazzled and convinced that Sloss was haunted, capturing amazing footage that can be seen on their site, misspelled. In addition, another investigation was held in 2003 by the Alabama Foundation for Paranormal Research, who quoted that there is no doubt Sloss is a hotspot for paranormal activity. During our investigations, we pulled data that confirms through our scientific methods and approach that energies are present that cannot be explained. Sloss is one of the most paranormally active places our team has investigated.
Right.
We could just, anyway. On October 4th of 2003, another assault happened to one of the crew members. Josh Thomas, who had worked at Sloss for many years, suddenly caught fire after seeing a strange shape, quote unquote. He suffered burns up and down his body and was taken to the hospital. He still cannot recall what happened.
So right there, right? Why is that not talked about more? Right? Because that's
way more interesting than any of that other shit.
Right.
And they said that, strangely enough, that this was almost on the exact 32nd anniversary of the Samuel Blumenthal burn attack, the Night Watchman from 1971.
Right.
Like almost the same time. So I heard, well, not heard, but I read a interesting idea with that this place is linked with like demonic activity, because if you put all the elements together about what was happening here, right? You have this big burning furnace,
right?
You have people being worked to death there, basically against their will, slavery, basically. And then essentially almost like human sacrifice that was happening here, that they essentially had summoned a demon to this place.
Inadvertently, you accidentally do all the steps of the spell,
accidentally.
you light the black candle, the black flame candle.
Right. He wasn't a virgin though. I mean, that's just an interesting. We don't know that. That's true. I mean, a couple of these guys, I don't know.
The two psychics,
the two incel psychics.
Because sexual activity, it
dampens your
dampens
antenna.
your antenna. Yeah, it takes away from your powers.
Right. Jesus Christ. I mean, I think that's an interesting way to put it all together, because it's like, well, I could see that. I mean, I don't believe any of that, but I think it's an interesting takeaway, I guess you could say, from what they're saying.
Right. And I do like that accidentally stumbling into a demon summoning ritual. For some reason, that's super like late 80s, early 90s horror movie for me. And like, that hits me right in the feelies, I'm like, oh yeah. So I can see that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're in that mode and you're hanging out there, you're like, demons, bro. And what year was this? October of 2003. Oh, that's right. Prime in everything's demons category.
Right. Yep.
This is my favorite clip here. In 2005, two psychic investigators from the TV show Airline. What the fuck is that? Investigated Sloss Furnaces. In the middle of the taping, one of them began to spontaneously bleed from a cut that appeared in his right hand, halting the investigation, but not before the camera crew caught images of spirits on their cameras.
We're gonna have to look this up.
I couldn't find it.
Gonna have to put on my my investigation hat.
Yep. In 2009, the Unexplained Mystery Investigation Team investigated Sloss and were shocked to capture spiritual shadows on film. Spiritual shadows. That should have been the name of our podcast, right there.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know what the problem is? We'd have to dress and talk a completely different way if that was the name.
You're not kidding. Yeah. I make up all of it. And in 2012, the team from Ghost Adventures visited and were physically assaulted again, caught on film. And then we have lastly here in 2014, Taps, Ghost Hunters, they were busy fixing a toilet and they got a phone call and they were like, hey, we got to go check out these fucking ghosts.
Yeah, they were like, we got a haunted, backed up toilet. Shit's flowing. Ghost shit's flowing out.
What sidebar? What convinced them that was a good idea to like have them fixing toilets and then go check out haunted houses?
I think a major donation from Roto-Rooter.
It must have been. Right. Like, were they trying, like, it was at the same time that like Orange County Choppers was like, remember that show? It was like a big thing. Like, is that what it was? Like, they're supposed to be like working dudes, but then we're gonna go look at ghosts when we're done working.
Yeah, that was the beginning time of like Dirty Jobs, and that was like all that was all kind of like the rage. So sci-fi had to kind of on the coattails of that. So you have Mythbusters, like all those kind of shows where it's like hands-on, right? And that's
like 20 minutes of like rolling up cables. I'm like, what are we doing here, guys?
Yeah, right. And they start off the episode, and they're in their truck, like Jason Hawesby, like under a toilet doing something, and Grant's like holding a pipe, and they're just like talking about the case coming up. It's like, why do we need that?
Yeah. And that just disappeared after one episode. I was just like, whew. So in 2014, Taps visited Sloss Furnace and filmed absolutely phenomenal, quote unquote, footage, proving that there is definitive spiritual activity at Sloss, and have since returned to capture even more evidence.
Now, I'm trying to think, is that the episode where they got like, it's like a small shadow person that does the weird movement? Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, I remember. That is a pretty good clip. I mean,
Yeah, I mean it's
compared
it's TV,
to
so
yeah.
it's. I mean, Ghost Adventures is just Zach yelling at the sky and whipping stuff with a belt. It's really weird, or whatever the fuck he's doing.
Showing off that back tattoo of the demon he encountered.
And that, but then the girl with the tramp stamp. He's like, "Oh, you got a tramp stamp? Check this out."
So bad, so rad. That's so rad. Your tattoo.
Show you the rest of my tattoos after we're done filming.
Yeah,
you can only say yes.
I got 3 skulls on my leg. The Grim Reaper on my right shoulder. Like, come on, dude.
Come on, bro.
Come on, bro.
So yeah, so that's a good I don't know, summation of some of the things that have occurred there. They all seem to be, lots of shadow figures, which seems to be linked to a lot of those cases there where it's like very, very negative, usually ends up in spirits that are, shadow in nature, but getting burned by an entity, that's that's pretty unique.
And seeing the shape that he couldn't, like the shape of like a person, like he can't really make it out, then all of a sudden he's a light, all of a sudden,
right?
And then so one, I don't think you're going to be able to get workman's comp if a ghost burns you. So telling that story, that just negates, you're burned on a lot of your body. I don't know if you're going to be doing that to yourself.
And then he just looks at him dead ass right in the face. Ghosts! It's like, okay.
Like, what happened to you, Bill? What happened?
Slos Furnace.
You know who I picture that guy like? The guy he always plays frantic victim. He's in Alien Resurrection. He's the guy that's like, he's in 7. He's in Saving
What's fucking side of me?
Yeah. He's in Saving Private Ryan. He's like, we were just too heavy. He's like,
yeah. He's Mr. PTSD.
Right, exactly. But he does it well, So I think he was a killer in like The Bone Collector or something, but he always plays Mr. PTSD, and that's who that guy is. He's in the hospital. Like there was just an image, and then there was a fire, and they try to calm him down, and they calm down for a second. And he builds, and then he spontaneously combusts again.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We cracked it wide open.
We do a lot of that here.
We do. So can we put this one up for ODP canon?
I'm absolutely going to say it is because it has to be, right? I mean,
right.
With everything that went down. I mean, look, I'm not saying there's like a spectral tornado of ghosts flowing from the place. It's not like House on Haunted Hill, the remake, there's not like
I consulted Tobin Spirit Guide and Spade's catalog. So
yeah, well, let's see. Pete, we haven't heard from you in a while. Pete, what do you think?
I'm coming through.
So he's down. I knew he'd be down. He probably visited there.
Yeah, he was there. He might still be there. He might vacation there from the Queen Mary.
Listen, if Peter James was still around, first of all, he'd be the 3rd member of this podcast. That's first of all.
Absolutely.
Second of all, we would go to these places with Mr. James, and we'd have him investigate. And before he'd investigate, I'd be like, look, turn it up. You know what I'm saying? Turn it up. I'm like, I want you to be like Derek from Most Haunted, from the fucking Travel Channel from like years ago. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, don't talk to me like that. You're not talking to me. Yelling, having a ghost argument. But
kicking shit over, and then
you'd be like, Peter, I want it as high as your flashlight above your face, man.
Yep.
Up there. Turn it up.
I want that mustache to turn white. I don't know.
Yeah. Stop using the Just for Men gel. Would that be it?
I don't know, man. I think he was all natural.
You think that was all natural? You think that was?
I do.
Yeah. Right.
Why keep the hair white but then have the mustache black?
Signature look, man. Signature look.
What it was?
Probably. Because you want to draw something to the face, All these other guys are a dime a dozen, all these Zachs, Jays, Grants, all these.
Yeah, you're right.
We don't have like a Gallagher-esque ghost hunter anymore, or like a
holy shit. Imagine a ghost hunter that would just come in there to smash watermelons.
Yeah. You want this watermelon? Ain't have it, or he would smash them to try to get the watermelon to like hit a ghost, like
Right.
Hollow Man, you know?
Right, so you could see the silhouette.
Yeah, detect them, right?
Instead of using the what was it, the what was that Xbox program that they used to use, the
the Kinect.
The Kinect.
Yeah, they still
You
do
see
that,
this
man.
stick figure breakdancing on the kitchen sink. We think it's a ghost. Like, no, it's not. It's malfunctioning.
They just the one they did Ghost Adventures in Vegas. It was Aaron's house that he gave to his dad,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about this little girl with like black eyes that sits on top of like the cabinets,
Like a doll's eyes.
like a doll's eyes. But like, yeah, they were using that, and like Aaron's freaking out. It's like where they said the girl was. He's just losing his mind. Did you see that one? Did you see that one?
I haven't seen many of the newer ones because they're not good.
Dude, in this
To put it
episode,
lightly.
so the dad who's having trouble, right? He's just they sent him to a hotel, and out of nowhere he shows up in the like out front, and he just starts crying, and they're like, what the fuck? And like they're like, he's like, my dad, man, he doesn't cry, that old chestnut, and he's just like, I wanted to be here, and you're like, oh, you're paying your dad to cry now.
Seriously. Like before the show, his dad's like, I'm not gonna fucking cry, and then Aaron's like, this is fucking Vegas, you gotta do it. And then Zach showed up and just slapped the shit out of him. He's like, you're gonna cry or you're not gonna get your fucking house back. And then it was a mess. So
he's like, I brought my
that's how I
checkbook.
think it goes.
Brought my checkbook, and I will buy your house right now and put it in my museum.
Yeah, in my museum. There are some things in this world that we will never understand.
Understand.
I like this one. This one's been around for a long time. I know you want to talk about this one for a long time, and I'd love to put it on the list of places to visit. I mean, one of these years, man, we're gonna have to take some kind of like summer paranormal trip. Yeah, and put this on the list, man, because
right after we get Dan Aykroyd on the show, we'll do it.
We should go with Dan Aykroyd. Get him in the car, film the whole fucking thing. Like we intend it to be like a paranormal thing, but then Dan has like a psychotic break during the trip, and that becomes the real documentary.
And it's just him chain smoking for 14 days telling us about UFO activity.
That's all it'll only be him talking about UFOs. That'll be it. And
we just name it a week or like a month with Dan Aykroyd.
Seriously, just like, all right, Dan, we're in this state. Tell us what we need to know. He's like, well, in 1965, a large black disc was sighted on the. It's like. The sky opened up and horsemen. You're like, oh my god, my god, Dan. Did it really? Yeah. And then he just pulls out all this evidence out of his jacket. It's like, you have that on you?
Yeah, I always do. Crystal Head Vodka.
Brought to you by.
Love Dan Aykroyd. All right, I guess that does it.
I guess so, man.
I just, what, the main thing, like the image of like the burnt man, like Slag. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's the coolest thing for me. And then half demon, half man, like pushing that steel, man. Like, yeah, that's the kind of ghost that you'll want, right? Oh yeah, no, that's pure, like that's movie ghost. You know what I mean? Like, right. That's something that, like, there's that burnt kid or burnt woman in like The Sixth Sense. It's one of the ghosts that's in the kid's apartment. It's like, oh, that's a movie ghost. That's exactly what you want. You want some like frightening. Yeah, she died. Oh, is that a real person? Yeah. Yeah. Is that a real person? And you see that they have like horrific injuries. Nope, that is a ghost. And this is one of the only ones that I'll make an exception, because I usually don't like, and I've said it on here before, like I hate when they go, that's who the ghost is, Yeah. It's like the history of that. But this one has like, a litany of, like they said, like so many other ghosts. But then there's this one that you're like, right, we know who this one is.
Well, you've got that, right? There's certainly certain places that have like these like signature ghosts. You know what I mean? They have like, they got the little ones that are kind of unnamed, but then they have the one that people like come to see. It's like, there's that famous one. What the fuck was that one? Mr. Boots. Where was that from? That was from one of the ones.
Yeah, that's
that's from the we didn't do that episode yet. That's from the Edinburgh like underground. Okay. Mr. Boots. Okay. But anyway, my point is there's these certain places that have like these ghosts that are like that's like the one you come to see. And then like there are these like little like, assortment of other like Skittles type ghosts. So it's just like an assortment.
Right. Yeah, just generic ghosts. They're just like,
Yeah.
right.
Right. They're just they're background. Yeah, they're background ghosts.
Yeah, the Haunting of Hill House ghosts that you have to find.
Right. Not 13 ghosts.
Yeah. Which this guy is definitely like a 13 ghost guy.
Oh yeah, totally. Like
Yeah.
I mean, he's burnt up. He's probably got like the uniform going on. He's probably got some kind of weapon of some sort.
He breaks Mikey's heart by killing Lillard right away. Matthew Lillard gets killed, and Mikey's like, no, and then Mikey takes down this ghost. So
right. I could picture Mikey taking out some ghosts.
Yeah, Mikey will take on some ghosts, definitely.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Mikey. Let us know, because I know you will anyway.
Yeah. Tag us on Facebook and let us know.
Let us know if you'll be taking down some ghosts anytime soon.
Yeah, anytime soon. This winter, do you plan on taking down some ghosts?
See, that's a thing that you don't plan for. It just happens.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
You're right.
Right. So either way, good luck, Mike.
I think we've reached the end of our rope here, guys.
We have.
So for this episode of Other Dangerous Podcast, I'm Ken James.
And I'm Jason McKittrick.
And as always, have a spooky evening. Thank you for listening to Other Dangerous Podcasts. Have you encountered the other dangers? If so, you can email us at otherdangerouspodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to have a discussion about the paranormal, you can find us at Other Dangerous Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. There you can find submitted pictures, videos, and artwork from listeners. We are now streaming on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else podcasts are streamed. And after listening, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you the other dangers.